Yes, good morning, everyone. How you doing? Actually, good lunch. Do you say good lunch? It's not afternoon yet, so good brunch, whatever it is. I'm glad that you're here. Good to see you guys. And I'm already happy that you guys are a little bit more loud than the first and second crew. They were so quiet today. I don't know how late they stayed up, but I'm glad you guys slept in so you can be here. And happy that you're here at church today. And if you didn't get the memo, it's the first weekend of May, which means we're officially starting summer. It looks like some of you guys didn't get the memo because you forgot your cool T-shirts, and I'm the only one who, well, there you go, Corey, and myself, we remembered our cool T-shirts. In Bend, you have to force summer because sometimes you will wear the summer gear, but it doesn't feel like you should wear the summer gear. You still have like a fleece shirt on, don't you? I mean, come on, Patrick, it's time to adjust to Central Oregon and put on your shorts 1st of May. So I'm hoping to see a lot of chicken legs next week. And if you've never seen anyone preach in shorts, it happens sometimes. And it's beautiful here. It's always warm, but it is beautiful. So please do me a favor. Don't make me look like this alone. And anyway, appreciate that you guys are here. I love this commandment. We're in the middle of a series called Tired of All the Rules. Maybe you're just jumping in. We're talking about the fourth commandment. And what we're doing is we're looking at revisiting the 10 commandments because we've always seen them and we've heard them. Maybe you didn't grow up in church. Maybe you did grow up in church. The 10 commandments it seems like they've always been so serious. Almost like people use them as a big bat to hit you over the head with, like you're not doing well enough and it's not working out. And the reality is that when we actually look at the heart of the 10 commandments, we can see that the commandments aren't law, they're life. They are life to those who find them. And so today we're wrapping up the first section because the Ten Commandments was written in two different sections. The first part, the first really 3 and 4 commandments are a covenant that God wants to initiate and make with you. He wants to be connected with you. And he lays out a covenant for us to how to connect with God. From here on out, starting next week, it's really how do we now connect with and relate with each other. It goes into commandments, right, that have to do with how we connect with each other. So the first 4 being really how we connect with God. This one, the middle one, is the commandment of rest, the Sabbath. And we all know this, is that when you're a happy, healthy you, connected to God, life is good. And when you're a happy, healthy you, connected to others, life is good. The moment you lose number 4, commandment, and you become an unhealthy you, your connection with God doesn't feel the same. And your connection with each other doesn't seem to work out. That's when we get into the whole don't murder and stuff like that. Because stuff gets real and it gets tense. This one is like the middle pivot point in which God really desires that you would live a refreshed life connected with Him and connected with others. If given the opportunity, how many of you would retire 10 years early? There are people who didn't raise their hand in that one. Are you kidding me? There are people who didn't raise your hand. Okay, that's awesome. If your boss came to you and said this, hey, listen, you've been working so hard, and I know we give you Saturday and Sunday off, but I'm going to keep your pay the same. I just want to give you Fridays off as well. I feel like a 3-day weekend would do you good. Anyone going to say no? Anyone? Anyone going to say no? Like if you're retired, you're like, I get all the days off, so that's fine. But the reality is that we all love to rest. We love vacation. We love time off. When given the opportunity, we will always take it. And I love this commandment, the commandment to rest. What's interesting is that God, I don't think, He doesn't put it in here because we lack the desire to rest. He puts it in because sometimes we don't know how to rest. You know, in Central Oregon, we know how to play, but we don't know how to rest. And this is one of the commandments that we look at. We go, hey, listen, maybe we haven't always done it right. Today, I'll bet you there's something that you can take out of this and say, hey, how do I walk into actual what God has for me, which is not just taking a day off, not just disconnecting, but there's actually something intentional about what God desires to do, and that's to refresh you. This is the idea of the Sabbath, is that you disconnect from one thing, but you intentionally connect to another. Have you ever experienced this in life where you feel like you're completely overworked, and it's like you had a weekend that was just bonkers crazy, busy, and you're thinking to yourself, I cannot wait to get to work on Monday so that I can take a breath and just rest a little bit. Anyone? I know you don't want to admit it, but the truth is it happens because we just jam-pack our weekends. And I don't know what your weekend looked like. I don't know what your last weekend looked like. But, I mean, hey, my life is busy enough. We all look at this and go, hey, listen, maybe I'm moving or I'm helping someone else move. We have house projects, right? Like the summer's coming, spring's kicking in. You're thinking, I got to get my house. I got to get this thing done. I got to rake. And we work our rear ends off throughout the weekend at home. We're working on projects. We got to install this thing. We got to fix this thing before that happens. And we have family that's going to come. And so the house has to be ready for them. And we just start packing things into our weekend, right? Where we paying bills, or we're some of you guys are traveling. Obviously, you guys aren't traveling because you're here, but everybody else who's not here is traveling because they have kids that are in sports. For some reason, they don't do sports locally anymore. The only way to do sports is if you drive to 3 other states. And so that's how they do sports nowadays. But there's a ton of parents that are just constantly on the move with their kids in sports and trying to keep them active, and you're trying to play catch up on your weekend. I mean, I used to, when I would travel, we would take time off when I was young, boy. We used to come back at like 11 o'clock the night before you had to be back to work. Anyone do that? And it's like you are not well for the next day. Like you're worthless the next day. I'm sorry, but the employer still paid you, but you were worthless. Like you got back at 11 o'clock and we just cram as much as we possibly can into our weekends, only to find ourselves on Monday tired as we walk to work, and by Tuesday we're just out of grace. We don't have any patience. We've lost our joy, and you're thinking to yourself, I need another weekend, until you look at the calendar and you realize, whew, that's going to be another busy weekend. And this is the schedule that a lot of us live on. We're constantly just packing things in. And so you think, okay, I'm completely worn out. I'm exhausted. I feel like I've lost my soul. I feel like I'm emotionless. And you're thinking, I need to do something to catch up. So you take an extra day off. You do a 3-day weekend, and you do nothing but veg. Like I turn off my phone. You say, hey, listen, I'm not talking to my friends. You just like hide in your home, and you turn on TV, you watch movies, and then you eat, and you eat, and you eat. And you just keep eating and just keep eating throughout the weekend, and you're thinking to yourself, I can do this, I'm going to rest, I'm going to be okay. And by the time Monday rolls around, you realize is that in the replenishment of your heart and of your mind and of your soul, you've gone from a negative 30 to like a positive 10. And you show up at Monday and you think, man, I don't know, I tried, but I just don't feel like I'm back yet. Anyone ever lived like that? It's different for all of us. We have different schedules. Not everybody has the same weekends. But the idea behind this commandment number 4 is that we would not just disconnect from the world and watch movies. It's that we would actually connect with a God who loves us, connect with those things that replenish our soul so that by the time we show up to Monday morning, we are ready for the week. And I can tell you, it doesn't always work that way. But the goal is that you would be replenished on your Sabbath. This is the heart behind it. This is God's heart behind the Sabbath. Sabbath itself just means take the day off. It means to stop doing work and to let it go, to actually just stop, like take the day off, don't work. And I know it seems like a really easy concept to grasp, but for some reason we just can't seem to figure it out, can we? Like you just said, well, I took the day off, but then I ended up doing this, and I had to do this, and this was piling up, and I had to get ready for this, and guess what? The week's coming in. If I don't prepare for the week, I'm going to... And next thing you know, it's like, just take the day off. And you're thinking, I'm trying here, but it's just not working. I love this as God lays out the Sabbath for us. He explains it with intentionality, and he continues to let us know over and over and over again. It's not just in the book, in Exodus 20, it's all over the Bible. He continues to bring up this idea of a Sabbath, which is disconnecting from the world, disconnecting from your job and your title and whoever you are, and actually purposely connecting back into God and into others and into those things that replenish your soul. I want to read this to you. Exodus 20. This is God mansplaining it to you. So it says this: remember to observe the Sabbath day and keeping it holy. You have 6 days of the week to do ordinary work, but on the 7th day is a Sabbath day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. This includes, but is not yet limited to, you, your sons, your daughters, your male servants, your maid servants, your friends that decide to hang out, your kids' friends, your livestock, your animals, your dog, your cat, your hamster, any foreigners or people living on your couch that are freeloading through this season. Every single person that is among you, this is who it includes. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the 7th day he rested. That's why the Lord blessed this Sabbath day, and he set it apart as holy. I love this because if you look at the other commandments, it's like, don't murder, don't steal. And on this one, he explains it. You can't get out of this. So it's interesting. We can very easily justify time off for ourselves. But have you ever worked with someone and you're thinking to yourself, they don't need another day off? They're doing nothing while they're here. That's why that's written in there. It's God's idea of labor laws. He wants to make sure that nobody holds it over anybody else. Every single person, young to old. I look at it and go, my kids, I'm thinking, come on, really? They get a day off? Really, my kids, they don't need a day off? And the reality is God's written these labor laws in there in order to keep us all on the same page. Today I want to look at this idea of rest, right? How do we rest well? Because that's something we struggle to do. What happens when we don't rest well? And then what was the heart and intention behind commandment number 4? Was it simply a labor law, or was there something behind it that God's trying to get into each and every one of us? It says this in Exodus 31, 12 and 13. I want to read this to you. It's going to come up here. I'm going to read it. Perfect. One more. Perfect. The Lord gave them these instructions to Moses. Tell the people of Israel, be careful to keep my Sabbath day, for the Sabbath is a sign of a covenant between you and me from generation to generation. It is given so you may know that I am the Lord who makes you holy. He says in there, if you leave that up for just a second, it says this, the Sabbath is a sign of the covenant between you and me. If you weren't able to hear the last couple of weeks, the way that the Ten Commandments is designed is that commandment 1, 2, 3, and even 4 is actually the exact same layout of what we would call wedding vows and a wedding covenant. When you get married and maybe you stood up on a stage, maybe you're by a river, or there's a pastor in there, you went through what we call wedding vows. This is the, right, I will have you to have in whole, better, worse, sickness, and for poor. It's basically, I'm going to make you priority of my life. That's commandment number 1. Then you go into the statement of covenant, right, is that I will keep myself holy unto you. That's the principle of purity, which is number 2. After you say these vows and this covenant, you make a commitment to each other, and you actually, the wife takes on the husband's name. And that's commandment number 3, where we take on his name. He's initiating a covenant relationship with you. And then the next thing you do is you say, hey, listen, now before we pronounce you, husband and wife, before we introduce you as husband and wife, we're going to exchange rings. You both grab these rings, and they're super expensive, and you put them on each other's fingers, and you would say something like this ring is a symbol of our love, and shall be a constant reminder throughout the years of the vows that we've taken today. You know, the Lord, throughout his word, has initiated 9 separate covenants with mankind. This is one of the covenants. We call it the law of Moses. But it's a commitment. It's the creator of the universe wanting to make a covenant relationship with you. Same thing with the wedding vows. Same thing with the statement of covenant, even the pronouncing and the exchange of rings. And the sign, this is commandment number 4, the sign of the covenant in marriage is a ring. In the Noahic covenant, or the covenant he made with Noah to never flood the earth again, the sign was a rainbow. And then the covenant he's making with you, mankind, the covenant, the sign that you see, that people see when they see you, is a happy, healthy, well-rested, well-loved Christian. That's the sign of a covenant with God. And so I have to ask myself this question, how good am I at that? Like when my neighbors see me, or coworkers, or people that would see me on a regular basis, do they look at me and be like, man, that guy seems like he's happy and healthy, and it's like I see him once a week. He stops working, and it's like he desires to. He goes to church, and it's like he's trying to connect with God, and it seems like he's out playing with his kids, and it's like for 1 week he just stops. Doesn't he know he can get 2 weeks or 2 days worth of work done on the weekend in his house? I mean, look at him. But yet, a sign when somebody sees me is not a Christian who's completely worn out with my soul dragging behind me. But someone who's present, someone who's there, someone who's like attentive. This is a sign. And I love this sign. This is a covenant that God is desiring to make with man, and the sign of this covenant is you, happy, well-rested, enjoying a Sabbath. I love this idea. To me, my name's Ben, and I love to party. And so I also love to just vacation, and I love to rest. I want to operate out of a place of rest because I feel like not only is that good for my soul, my creativity, and my heart, my passions, and my desires, that's also a sign of a happy and healthy Christian. So this is what we do, is that we learn to not just disconnect from the world, but to actually intentionally walk into a Sabbath, which is to intentionally connect with God and all things moving forward. I love this. Robert Morris, he wrote this book called Take the Day Off. Spoiler alert, we're going to give you one as you walk out. You guys can all have a book. I didn't write it. My name's not Robert, and I don't look like that. So I know. I was thinking to myself, I wonder if they think I wrote a book. No, they wouldn't expect that of me. So anyway, this is a great book that I read. I read in 3 days. He's a new one that he wrote on the Sabbath, and I just loved it. I look and go, hey, that's great. Like this is. I want my soul back. I want to be able to walk through the week and actually be present. I don't want to feel like I'm walking through with no emotions, walking through with no passions and no drive. I actually want to be present in the moment. You know what I want for this summer? I want to enjoy it. I don't want to dread it. And I think it's the same for each and every one of us, to make sure we're resting well in this time. He says this, and I love this, choosing the Sabbath. It's a protest and a rebellion against the innate desire that I have to trust in my own self-sufficiency. So the Sabbath is a protest. I say this, I cannot do this on my own, and I cannot do this by myself. I choose to protest my own self-sufficiency. So on the Sabbath, I'm going to choose to slow down. I'm going to be a son for that day. I'm not going to be a pastor. It's a pastor who wrote this. He said, I'm not going to be a leader. I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be a boss. I'm not going to be self-employed. I'm not going to be a student. I'm not going to be all the titles that the world places on you throughout the week. For the one day, I choose to let all my titles go, all the things that I'm supposed to be doing at work and things I'm supposed to be holding up, and I'm going to choose to lay all of those titles down, and for one day, I'm just going to simply be a son, and he's going to be a father. I'm going to let him be potter, and I'm going to choose to be clay. For he is father, and I am son, and for one day a week, I'm going to get my true identity back. It's a powerful thought. Next page, he mentions John 15:15, where Jesus says, apart from me, you can do absolutely nothing. Yet we try every week. Every week we continue to try. But the reality is, apart from God, apart from that connection with him, that healthy connection with him, we can do absolutely nothing. Without our connection with Jesus, we can do nothing of eternal value. It's the one day a week that I have to remind myself. I have to remove myself as provider and remind myself he's the provider of our home. I have to remove myself as the leader of our home and remind my family and myself God is the leader of our home. I have to remove myself as the strong alpha, right, who's the master of his own life and the master creator of his own destiny. Like, I've watched and heard so many people talk about self-made. And I just stop and go, listen, like, don't do it. It's not worth it. You don't need to worship your own self-sufficiency. I will very easily admit, as all of us should, we aren't self-made. We are dependent on God for absolutely everything. And the difference between a Christian and someone who's not a Christian is the difference between someone trying to make it on their own in their own self-sufficiency, doing it themselves, man-made, self-made, and someone who says, listen, I'm completely dependent on God for everything. And we choose as an act of, whether you would call it like aggression, right, or as an act to say, hey, listen, I choose to say no to my own self-sufficiency. I'm not so important that I have to answer my phone, that I have to like run around and do all this stuff. It's a day that I could just stop and just let myself remind myself that I'm a son and he's God. I love this. He goes on, this is the fun part of Exodus 31. It says this, Exodus 31:14 and 15. You'll enjoy this. You must keep the Sabbath day, for it is a holy day for you. Anyone who desecrates it must be put to death. And you're thinking to yourself, did I show up on the wrong Sunday? And you're thinking, did I see anyone walk out? That was the question. Like, where did they go after this? Anyone who works on that day will be cut off from the community. And then you want to say he raises his voice and continues on with this. It says this, you have 6 days each week. Go ahead and click it. You have 6 days each week for you to do ordinary work. But on the seventh day, you must be a Sabbath day of complete rest, holy day dedicated to the Lord. Anyone who works on the Sabbath must be put to death. I know I look at it, I'm going like, man, that's a great one. I'm thinking, what do we do? The best part about this is that you found this is the first generation, thousands of years ago, that God initiated this covenant relationship with, and he put very serious consequences upon the breaking of this covenant. This was legit back in that day, and what we find now is that even after Jesus, who has some of the things we say made it through the cross and some of them didn't, the punishment for not observing the Sabbath did not make it through the cross. As we're going to see today in Mark 2, Jesus actually broke the law of the Sabbath. And the reality is that the consequence still remains. Meaning this, it's a very real consequence when you continually live in your own self-sufficiency, that you are going to lose relationships. You're going to lose connection with people, and you will lose community. And the very real thing happens to you is you get to work yourself to death. Although it's not an immediate death, we've all seen someone, or maybe we've been in a season where we just feel like we're working ourselves to death. I've had to apologize to my wife so many times, like, you married me, we're in covenant, so you can't leave, and I'm sorry. But I just feel like I'm striving in this season. I just feel like I'm pushing. I feel like my soul's gone. I feel like my creativity's gone. I feel like my passion's gone. I feel like I'm just dragging myself through life. And I have to remind myself that that's not what it's meant to be. But we've all seen someone who just continually works themselves to death. And you think to yourself, that's no way to live. And they get it. I've heard it all the time. Well, there's never enough time, never enough money. We got to keep striving. It's like it's never complete. You see people who are always worn out. There are people always stressed out. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that doesn't sound like a good way to live. But I probably even said it myself where I'm like, when times are tough, you go, well, that's just life. True. That's a life without God. And the punishment for a life that's disconnected from God, that is not refreshed and replenished, is one that slowly dies. And that, when we choose to live there, is very serious to God, because the sign of the covenant for people to see is when we are happy, healthy, refreshed individuals. When they can see on our face that God loves us and he's taking care of us and we're replenished in all that we do. Sure, that means we still have hard times. But one day a week to just get our soul back. He finishes Exodus 31 with this verse right here, and it says this: "This is a permanent sign of my covenant with my people Israel. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, but on the seventh day he stopped working, and he was refreshed." This here, stopped working, is actually the word Sabbath, because the word Sabbath means to stop working. But it says this: he stopped working and was refreshed. Same word in Hebrew used in Genesis when God stopped and was refreshed. They used it in Exodus 20. Used it here in Exodus 31. We see it all throughout the Bible. This word is that the Sabbath is two things. It's not just to stop working. It's not just to take a day off. It's actually to take a day off, disconnect, and be refreshed. To actually let our soul be refreshed. This word, it's a Greek word, and I'll have it up here for you. I don't know how to say it because I don't speak Greek, but the word actually used means to take a deep breath. It's napesh. It's like it's this idea on the bottom there. See, it's like to take a breath of fresh air. It's like the moment you stop something, you're like, oh, you get your breath back after a long sprint or a long run. It's like, boom, your heart rate settles, and it's like, okay, I got fresh wind in my sail. The cool thing about this word, refreshed, is it's that to get your breath back, but the root of the word, it means to get your breath back in this way. It means to get your soul back. It means that your life gets a breath of fresh air. Your desire, your passions, your emotions, and even your appetite all of a sudden is refreshed. The moment that we realize that you just came back. As a kid, I remember my dad, he would go through seasons like all of us do, in which you just feel pressured in life. Everything's pushing on you and pulling on you, and you just feel like you're totally worn out. And we always knew, you know what stuff's going on, and mom and dad are struggling, or dad's struggling, and stuff like this. But we always knew the moment it changed. We knew the moment my dad got his soul back. What happened was we'd be sitting, getting ready for school or something like this, and we could hear dad in the back room as he's getting ready for work, and he would whistle. You'd hear him back there. And the moment you heard Dad whistling, we all looked at each other and said, hey, he got his whistle back. It was the moment something broke in his life and his soul came back. His passions came back, his desire came back. All of a sudden it was like, hey, listen, now I'm going to go ahead and hit this project. Like, just Dad came back. As a kid, I recognized that. I wonder if my kids see that in me. The moment dad comes back, the moment my soul's refreshed and I'm like, okay, I'm back, I'm here again. But this is that idea of the Sabbath. It's not that we just disconnect, but it's that we purposely connect and we are refreshed. I love this idea. It's the idea that our desire and our appetite come back to us, which means on Monday morning when it's time to go to work, right? Your appetite and desire for work came back. It's like your desire for creativity and your emotions, because we've all gone through these seasons where you feel like your emotions are just gone, obsolete. And then all of a sudden, when you're refreshed and your soul came back, you realize, man, like you can feel more emotions in that time, in that moment. There's something about it, intentionally disconnecting and then intentionally connecting. For me, what I do is I like to spend extra time on my days off. It doesn't have to be a Sunday. That's law. Life is, you get to pick when you do it. A lot of people, it's your Sunday. You take Saturday to work on your house. Sunday's your day to just completely disconnect. For me, it's Friday. If most people who know me know Friday's my Sabbath day because I don't answer your phone calls and I don't talk to you. So I take a day and I just disconnect from the world. I don't check my email. Sorry, you won't get an email back from me on Friday. Like I don't correspond. I don't operate in the titles that I've been given. I choose to just be a son. And on those days, I spend extra time with God. I read my Bible a little bit longer. That doesn't mean I read it for 5 hours. I mean, trust me, I'm not that good. I take a little extra time. I turn on worship. I get in a proper headspace and I journal. I just to spend some time with God. I like to play. To me, I rest through play, and so I love to play. I play golf. I play sports. I'll ski. I'll take a bike ride. I'll go for a walk. I love to be outside. That's what I love to do. That's what replenishes me. I jump back into whatever things are creative for me. For you, it's different. But for me, like, I love music, so I'll play music on Fridays. There's things that I love to do. Maybe you love to build. I've talked to people who are like, man, I just want to work in my shop. I love my shop, but it's like, I can't because I'm supposed to not work, and you're thinking, no, if it replenishes you, if it fuels your soul, then that's what you're supposed to be doing. The goal is not that it becomes a law that you have to follow. The goal is that it's life to you. That you take time to reconnect with God. You take time to reconnect with those things that are gonna fuel you, fuel your soul. Like some people love cooking. You feel like through the week you just like pound out meals and for a family, but then on that day you want to do something that has to simmer, something that has to marinate, right? You want to do something that takes time. You want to bake something. For people it's painting. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but on my day off, I want to play. I want to laugh. I want to listen. On my Sabbath days, I do dinner with my family or with friends. That's what I like to do. It's like I like to finish my day with people. Some of you are not extroverts and you want to finish your day by yourself. That's okay if that replenishes you. For me, I want to be with my family. I want to go for a walk down to the river. I want to watch a movie. 2 Sabbaths ago for me on a Friday. I sat down with my kids in the evening. I got 5 of them. We're all sitting on the couch and I have like 4 of them in my arms and we watched 3 episodes of The Chosen. And that was how I finished my Sabbath day. That fueled me, because when the TV's on, the kids aren't arguing. And it's a beautiful show, The Chosen. I just sat there like totally like just letting my soul be refreshed, right? Holding on to them. They love me, and we're all there as a family, kind of sitting on the couch. And it's just like every time Jesus came on the scene in The Chosen, it's like I just started to cry. I was like, I attached with my emotions that day. I just felt like that day I was just really kind of in the presence of God. To me, it was like a sweet Sabbath. But that's the goal for me, is to stay in the presence of God and to replenish my soul. I don't know what that looks like for you to disconnect, because every one of us is in a different stage or season. I mean, if you're a student, you're asking the question, well, I don't work, what do I do? Well, what does it look like for you to set down your phone? Maybe connect and be present in the moment. Right? What does it look like to disconnect from the world? And what does it look like to connect with God for you? Even journaling or reading. I mean, some of us, there's people who are self-employed. It's like, you seem like work never goes away. It's true, it will never go away. You have to create boundaries in your own life. I mean, if you're working from home, a ton of people are working from home nowadays. There's no more separation between home life and work life. There's no more sacred space. You have to create that. You've got to, I don't know what it takes for you, whether you're going to unplug your computer and set it out in the garage for a day or what it's going to take. But you have got to create that space where you disconnect from those things that you do and start to reconnect with your true identity, which is a son and daughter. to reconnect with God. And there's a lot of single parents, too, that I talk to. They're like, how in the world? Like, I don't have a reprieve. I don't have someone to, watch the kids while I go and play. We have to be creative in every season. There's people who are retired in this room. My parents are retired. There's a lot of people who are retired, and they're asking, like, okay, so take another day off? What do you mean by that? Do you know what I mean? Like, what does that look like? In every season, it's going to look different for every person. The point, the goal of the Sabbath is that you would disconnect from those things that drive you, from work, and that you would reconnect with God, reconnect with others, and reconnect with his soul. Get your soul back. Get yourself refreshed. The Sabbath is life, not law. Jesus said this in Mark 2:27. He was walking through a field with his disciples, and they were picking grains because they were hungry, so they're picking the grain off the wheat, and they were eating it. Someone saw them, and they were saying, hey, that's the law of the Sabbath. You're working on the Sabbath. You're picking grain, and you're not supposed to do this. The law said that they were to be put to death. He's walking with his friends, and he looks up at the Pharisees in discussion of law, and he looks at them about the Sabbath, and he says this. Jesus said to them, he said, the Sabbath was made, I'll wait for it to go. Is it not on? It's not on. It's coming. Go now. In Mark 2:27, there you go. It says, Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of the people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. Can you leave that on there for a minute? Jesus, in reference to the Sabbath, says this. The Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people, not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. Maybe you're new to Christianity and you're trying, hey, what does this look like? And how do I do this? And someone has sat down with you. Oh, you got to go to church at this time. You got to make sure you read your Bible this much. And on your Sabbath days, you got to read it 500 times more. And you got to do all this stuff. And you got to pray this much. And you got to make this thing happen. And we create these rules and these laws in which we're all trying to follow in order to actually fulfill the requirements of the Sabbath. The reality is the way it was given, the heart behind the Sabbath, was it was created to meet your needs. So what refreshes you? Because usually the law sucks you dry. And life and relationship fill you up. And so we have to step back and say, hey, the Sabbath is not a law to follow. It's a gift from God to you. And a sign of a healthy you connected to a loving God. When people look at you, they need to see a healthy you that's connected to a loving God. That's the sign. That's the goal behind the Sabbath. So when I look at my summer, my dad used to hate, I guess maybe some of you don't know, my dad was the founding senior pastor of this church. And I took his job. I would say he gave it to me, but I took it. And I want to be accurate. So he used to hate August. Because August, typically in Central Oregon, we know how to play, but we don't know how to rest. And by August, we've used up all of our paid time off. People have put so many things on their calendar. They just shove stuff in. And by the time you finish August getting ready for September, people are completely worn out. They've used all their PTO, but yet they're still completely and utterly broken. Not refreshed. And then you're thinking to yourself, man, I got to now start school. I got to get this thing going. I got to get that thing going. And he used to preach on Sundays, but he would just go, man, like, I need to refresh my own spirit. He would take the weeks off, and he would go, and he would pray, he would journal, he would read. He would take the weeks to, like, replenish, knowing September's coming. And I want to be ready for it. I want to be excited about it. And I know that in our own community, it's very easy for us to do that, to just pack as much as we can in the summer and meet every family requirement, make everything happen. I want to challenge you because, sure, you can get the next Sabbath right. But we need to be in a habit of doing it right long term. What's your August going to look like? Are you going to be completely worn out and tired of all the stuff you just did on your time off? Or are you actually going to arrive in such a way that says, my heart is good. I'm connected. I actually Sabbathed right. I didn't just take the day off and disconnect and then go connect to something else. I chose to reconnect to God and let my heart and my soul be replenished. This is the challenge for us. This is part of the reason we bought these books and said we just want to give them to you, is that this is a good read. I know some of you struggle to read, and that's okay. One thing that's always a great idea is on your next road trip, have your spouse read it to you while you're driving in the car. See? Solution. And I do that. Rachel loves to read. She doesn't want me to read to her because it's a mess. And there's no punctuation in my reading. I take it all out as I'm reading. So she doesn't do that. So we got each one of you a book. I know as well some of you guys don't like the spouse share. It causes real issues in your family, which it does in mine. So please, if you want to grab two for your family. I would encourage you to read this book. I read it in 3 days. It's not hard. It's an easy read. And that's not because I'm a good reader. It's because it was really easy to read, and I like it. And so this is something we just want to make sure. We want to continually invest in your journey. We want to invest in you as you're connecting with God, as you're growing, and as you're saying, I want to do it, and I want to do it right. I want to know what this looks like, because we don't want to become a religious people. We want to become a people in love with Jesus. And so we want to be a part of your journey. And I don't know, rest is one of the many benefits of a relationship with God, but there's so many other ones. There's so many other ones like health and healing and wholeness and hope. The rest is one of those things that we need to hold on to. And I don't know where your journey is today. I don't know if you've not even started a journey to know God. You're like, who's God? Like, what are you talking about? We want to be a part of that journey in your life. Sure, you've maybe seen it in church where we say, hey, we want to pray with you at the end of this service. And, we were going to believe in our heart, confess with our mouth. But I also want to say this, like, we want to be a part of this journey in your life. This isn't something that just happens in a weekend. Relationship with God is something new. It's a lifestyle to be lived. And so I would say, hey, come see me. Come see someone on prayer. Fill out a Connect card. I want to know more about God. And what's my next step? And, in Growth Track, we take time to even walk through what does that look like to connect with God and have a journey in that. Rest is one of those journeys, and it's commandment number 4. It's the one, if you choose to get one right, do that one. Also, don't murder, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that one. But do this one right, so that when the world sees you, they can see a reflection of someone who's connected to a loving God. So grab a book on your way out. And I want to pray for you. Kelsey, would you come? We're just going to sing the finish of the song. It's actually really cool if you listen to the words. It just says, I will rest in your promises. And Psalms chapter 18 says, all your promises will prove true. And so we choose to rest in those things. It's the day that we say, all right, God, I'm going to rest in the things that I can't fix, I can't change. And so I just want to finish with that song. I want to pray for you as you finish this time. And my encouragement is that this next season of your life, you would lean into not just more days off, but you would lean into a correct Sabbath where you disconnect from one and reconnect with God. Jesus, thank you. Thank you for this time. Thank you for even the 4th commandment, which is life to us. It's not law, it is life. God, we choose to make a covenant relationship with you, to be happy and healthy Christians connected to a loving God. You're amazing. And Lord, may our life reflect a relationship with you. May we become more and more like you every day. God, teach us to rest the way that you created it to be. Help us even this next week to pick a day, set aside and to actually focus on you. And help us get into this rhythm of letting our soul once a week be completely replenished and refreshed in you. And in our relationships and in creativity, may our passions and our emotions and our desires all come back to us so as we start our week, we come ready with our soul, with our emotions, with our passions and our desires, ready for what you have in this next week. God, let us be intentional. We love you. Thank you for rest. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's stand and let's sing this together.